Tabanca. A sitar is singing amidst the cane fields, strumming sweet, seeking to be healed. Kind fingers are gently plucking in the rain the bittersweet song of a lover's pain. Hear the sitar strumming with a beauty sad, with the beauty of a love it cannot have. The sitar is singing and weeping in the rain of romance that may not come again. The sitar is singing of a love it once knew. A hibiscus sheds teardrops wet with dew. The sitar is strolling down memory lane and plucking away to soothe its pain. The sitar is playing its memory sweet. The minstrel is strumming from sadness deep. The sitar is music musing through soulful strains. Its beauty singing sighs a lover's name. The sitar is weeping as the rain sheds tears. The music is calling back love of yesteryears. But the voice of the music calls in vain. For silence, for silence, for silence, for silence calls back midst the sugar cane. Hear the sitar strumming with a beauty sad, with the beauty of a love it cannot have. The sitar is singing of a bittersweet pain, melody plucking the heartstrings of the rain, for love may never come again. Okay, so love sickness. How many of you have ever, so Tabanca, love sickness. How many of you have ever experienced this? I don't think I've ever experienced Tabanca. I don't think. Nah, I don't think so. I don't think I ever have. Have I ever had love interest? Of course, I'm human, right? I'm not a robot. I'm not made of metal. Anyway, I've never experienced Tabanca, but it's something that you hear in so many. It's such a common topic of love songs and even some of our local music that you do know, you do get a feeling of what it must feel like. Of course, you don't really know until you experience it. But have you ever experienced Tabanca? Would you be brave enough to tell us? Anyway, in this video, what I'd like to do is share some, like, to provide different perspectives to help people either deal with Tabanca if you're going through Tabanca right now, or to help people avoid Tabanca if you've never experienced it. And if you want to just make sure that you prepare your heart in such a way that it would be very unlikely for you to have to deal with something like love sickness. So let's keep things in perspective. Now, in this poem, we see a guy. You can sense the his sadness in the in nature, like the hibiscus with the teardrops, and the rain that's falling, the sugar cane, the sugar cane field is very quiet. It's not calling back. It almost seems to be, there's silence among the calling back from the cane field. It's almost like the disinterest. It's echoing the disinterest of the love interest that he has lost, and so on. And by the way, what's interesting? Oftentimes when we hear about Tabanca, it seems to be on the side of the guy. I don't know. Is Tabanca as common for women? I don't know. It always seems to be the guy who has a Tabanca. Anyway, I don't know. I could be wrong. Right? Anyway, yeah. So how to deal with Tabanca. First of all, it's important. Well, most importantly, it's important to keep things in perspective. Tabanca, I think people experience Tabanca because what fills their gaze is this person that they have lost, and that's all they can see, that's all they can think about, right? So the most important thing a person can do to deal with Tabanca is to broaden their perspective, broaden their perspective, or broaden your perspective. So first of all, consider this. If you were madly in love with somebody, and let's say you did everything, let's say you did all the right things, right? Let's hypothetically speaking, say that you did all the right things, but this person, let's say they stabbed you in the back. Let's say they ran off with somebody else, because that's often maybe what happens, right? Or let's say they treated you contemptuously and they walked away. But they did it in a very contemptuous way. If that was the case, then I would say, is it possible that you fell in love with a mirage? What if the person you thought that person was not really a real person, in the sense that what you fell in love was your own illusion of who that person was? And if that's the case, that person may have done you a favor by walking away, right? And if they stabbed you in the back, is that the kind of person you want to walk into married life with? What if they horn you? What if they decided to horn you and run off with some other person, and leave you, even more heartbroken, right? So them walking away may have been, as much as this may not be very comforting, them walking away may have actually been a blessing in disguise, right? The other thing is, okay, let's say you did everything right, and they walked away, but they walked away respectfully. Then and they were just saying, you know what, I know you think I'm right for you, but I don't think you're right for me, right? For whatever reason that may be. Then here's something else to think about. One is it possible that you could like somebody so much that you become almost kind of suffocating, and your love could be almost suffocating the person? Like you're so almost obsessed with the person, because Tabanca comes from a kind of obsession, right? Is it possible that you were so obsessed? Is it possible that the person felt suffocated by your obsession with them? That's possible. You got to ask yourself that. Like, you see, there's a difference between love and obsession. Obsession is possessive. A possessive kind of sense of control is not love. It's control. And there's a big difference between control and love. And that's why so many incidents that we hear about now, tragic incidences where men may cause serious physical harm, and sometimes the ultimate physical harm, to a love interest, because they felt rejected, and they basically say, if I can't have you, nobody else could have you, right? That's not love, that's obsession, and there's a difference. So That's the other thing to keep in mind. And if you are obsessed, then you really can't fault the person for walking away from you, because you're a liability in a case like that. And that love interest may have been insightful enough, alert enough to recognize that. And for their own good, their own safety, they decided to walk away. And in that case, you really have to look at yourself. You may even want to maybe get some psychological help, counseling of some kind. There's no shame in that. We in the Caribbean, we live in societies where going to seek out professionals and counselors and people like that is considered taboo. But when you consider that everything a person does is determined by what we think, then we have to admit that people like counselors and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists are absolutely integral to the success of human society and human relationships, so whether that relationship is with somebody else or with ourselves, right? And in the case of an obsession with somebody, the real issue may not be so much how we feel about that person. It may be more about the relationship that we have with ourselves, right? So in a case like that, if you are experiencing Tabanca or have experienced Tabanca, it may very well be pointing to the fact that you have a toxic relationship with yourself that you probably need to get sorted out in some way, right? It doesn't mean you're crazy or anything necessarily, even though that kind of obsessiveness could lead you to do crazy things. But it does mean that you may have some deep issues that you may need help to sort out and to sort through, and that you may not be able to sort through on your own. And if you are, there's nothing wrong with seeking out therapy, whether you're a man or a woman. Get help. And if you're self-conscious about going physically to some location, because you may have concerns about your privacy and so on, there are lots of online therapists, so you can seek out somebody online. They don't even have to be in your country. I don't think. They could probably be somebody in some other part of the world. I'm not sure how it works. Or you could find people from your country, like here in Trinidad and Tobago, that we do have local therapists and so on who would offer online counseling. So that's something you could consider. The other thing to keep in mind is that don't feel, even if you felt that the person who walked away from you was the one, don't feel that they were the only one, because there are, what we see, there are a lot of fish in the sea and there are other fish in the sea. And I know that may not sound very comforting, but it's the reality. Like, yeah, it's the reality. Like, there are so many other people who would probably, who you would be happy with, who you'd be equally happy with or even more happy with. So you may be thinking, oh my gosh, that was the one. And God might be saying, actually, I have someone better. I have someone better for you. So there are other fish in the sea. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And so you got to be open to that. Like, if you spend your days kind of pining away in bed, or keeping yourself isolated from other people and not going out, you may not meet that person. So you kind of got to pull yourself together. Take the time to to grieve your loss, or to just lick your wounds, in a sense, if I could put it like that. I don't mean to put it like that, but take some time to add some ointment to your emotional wounds. But when you feel better, get back out there and just let life take its course, and see who God leads to you. Okay, the next thing to remember is that we should not make a person, like a single person, our ultimate source of joy, happiness, and fulfillment. So that's a very dangerous thing to do, because just like I heard uh Judge Jensen, let me make sure. Why do I always forget her name? I'm so bad. Oh dear. I only kind of listened to her video yesterday. Maybe that's why. Yeah. No, not Jensen. Jenkins. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Sorry, Judge Jenkins. It's Judge Faith Jenkins. You know, in one of her interviews, she said that, you know, when you give a person the power to be your source of happiness, you also give them the power to be your source of sadness and depression. So it really is dangerous to put somebody on such a towering pedestal that, you know, you credit that person with being your major or sole source of fulfillment. That's a very dangerous thing to do, right? And again, it kind of points to, if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself and you don't make your own self happy, then you're going to look for somebody else who will make you happy. And it's not fair to put that kind of weight on somebody else's shoulders. That's the first thing. And I know, putting Tabanca and all of that aside, I know that's something that scares guys away. Like when they realize that a girl is looking to them as their source of happiness, they're like, oh my gosh, that's not something I want to have to deal with. Whereas if they find a lady who who's already happy and contented and self-assured, they know that, okay, they've got somebody who is not waiting for them to be some magic working, miracle working kind of divinity in their life, right? So yeah. So don't make somebody your ultimate source of joy, happiness, or fulfillment, because that's a very dangerous and vulnerable place to put yourself in. The other thing is, I think it's important for, connected to that, it's important for us to fall in love with ourselves first before we fall in love with anybody else. I don't mean fall in love in a narcissistic kind of way. I mean like fall in love as in love yourself so much that even if you're not in a relationship, it won't crush you. It won't leave ashes in your soul. You know what I mean? So fall in love with yourself, like love yourself. Like, I have to admit, that's how I feel. Like I feel like I could be single for the rest of my life and be perfectly happy because I love my own company and I make my own self laugh with the silly things that I think or the silly things that I do that only God and I and all the angels around me know that I do, that we're probably going to have a good laugh at when I get to the other side of eternity, you know? But yeah, I enjoy my own company very, very much. I know how to have a good time by myself. And that means that, you know, when I get into a relationship, if I get into a relationship, then I will definitely not be depending on the other person to be my source of joy. The other thing is, more importantly than falling in love with ourselves, it's so important to love God with all our might, all our strength, all our soul, all our being, all our everything, all our choices, all our motives, all our thoughts, all our doings, all our dreaming, all our ambitions, all our everything. You know, when we love God, He will fill every hole in our heart with Himself. And, you know, sometimes when people have an obsession with something, it's almost like you're addicted to somebody. That's what Tabanca is, like you were addicted to somebody. Like I said, it could point to us having some kind of toxic relationship with ourselves, whatever may be the root cause of that, you know, that you can't explore with a counselor, like a trained counselor, if you yourself feel you can't do it yourself. But sometimes when we have a toxic relationship with ourselves, it could be pointing to the fact that there's a hole in our heart, and we're trying to fill that hole with somebody. But in one of my books, I remember saying it was a Heart Smart 3. I said that, sometimes we as people, we feel like donuts. A donut has a bottomless hole, right? A donut has a bottomless hole. But the only thing you can fill a bottomless hole with is something or somebody else that is bottomless. The only person who fits that description is God. So if you want to heal your soul and heal from or move away, far away from falling to Tabanca, it's so important to develop a friendship with God, a relationship with God, so that you can be the person that God always wanted you to be, so that you can walk in the purpose that God called you into, because God has a purpose for every day, everybody, and so that he can fill that bottomless hole with himself, because he is bottomless. He's vast. He's endlessly vast. He is there. You can't put a ceiling on who God is, and you can't put any flooring to who he is. He's vast. He's bottomless. He's immeasurably immense, right? So he's infinite. He's infinite. There's no end to him. You can't measure him. So that's who you need to fill that hole in your heart with. And finally, to deal with Tabanca, what you want to do is expand your world. There's a sense in which if you make somebody your whole life, they are your world. They are your everything. Outside of them, you have nothing. Then I don't mean to be harsh, but it's like saying, you know what? I don't have a life. You are my life. I don't have a life. And that's not healthy. Even for a married couple, for the married couple to be, the husband is his wife's world, the wife is the husband's world. Even that's not healthy. I mean, I've heard a lot of married couples say that it's important to have your own independent interests, maybe even sometimes time where you're not together, you're doing your own thing, but you're interested in what each other would be doing. You might come back home and you talk about, well, I did this and I did that or whatever. But sometimes you need time apart from each other. Like, you cannot be each other's world. So it's important to expand your world if you are single and experiencing Tabanca, or whether you're single or not single, it's important to expand your world, like explore new hobbies, get into volunteering. That will also make sure that you would probably end up spending time around other people, and that can be very fulfilling, even if even when those relationships may be platonic, or whatever, or professional. You might enjoy having a pet, getting a pet. You might enjoy, if you can afford it, traveling and seeing the world, or if you can't, like even just traveling around your own country, seeing more, exploring your own local stomping grounds. And the other thing is like building friendship with other people, establishing like platonic friendships with people. So that can also be very, very helpful. Of course, friendship is kind of iffy because I don't think me personally, I don't think it's easy to necessarily, let's put it like this: finding and forming quality friendships, especially the older that you get, is a rare luxury. I don't know if luxury is the right word, but it's not a luxury, because luxury suggests you don't need it, but it is a rare gem. Let's put it like that. So, but I'll tell you this: if you make God your absolute best friend, he will fill every hole in your heart, like I said before. And Tabanca would just never be an issue for you, I don't think. So, so that's it. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? How would you advise somebody to deal with Tabanca? Like, and if you've gone through Tabanca and successfully navigated it, what were some of the things that worked for you? Or what did you learn about yourself? Or what did you learn from the experience? I would love to know. So that's it for now. I hope this was helpful. And until next time.